Two questions sometimes asked in the middle of a conversation can imply two greatly different meanings, such as one, do you know what I mean? And then two, do you get what I'm saying? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 1 of the Torah portion of Vayigash, and we are in Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter number 44. Verse number 18 says, And Yehudah came near to him, that is to Joseph, and said, O my master, please let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you're like Pharaoh. Then we go over to verse number 27. Then your servant, my father, said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, Truly he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you should bring down my gray hair with evil to Sheol. And now if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, since his own life is bound up in his life, then it shall be when he sees that the boy is not with us, that he shall die. So your servant shall bring down the gray hair of your servant our father with evil to Sheol. So there is 2 different ways of reading this dialogue. We'll use that phrase, this dialogue that Yehudah approaches his, unknown to him, his brother Joseph at this moment. There's 2 ways of looking at this. Now, the play has been enacted now for several chapters. Joseph is pushing and pushing and pushing to see if he can get the real character of these brothers to come to the surface so that he can discern whether they are the same brothers that he knew the last time that he saw them, or where life's circumstances over the years has changed them. Are they repentant? Do they regret what they did to him? Do they even care what happened to him? And so he's pushing the button of Benjamin. Now, before we go further, let's understand the symbolism of Benjamin. He is the son of my right hand. He is a significant son. To Yaakov, he's the remaining, in his understanding, the only remaining son that he has of his beloved wife, Rachel. As such, he cannot bear to lose him. He's the baby of the family, although at this point he's not a young child, he's a young man. And so there is this great life attachment to Benjamin. Benjamin also happens to be the tribal territory that the Temple Mount is situated in, just at the border of the tribe of Yehudah. Benjamin also acts as a land bridge between the tribe of Yehudah's land and that of the tribe of Ephraim, the house of Joseph. And so Benjamin stands in between. Who is going to have control over Benjamin? Let's carry this a little bit further. The tribe of Yehudah, the Jews in the land of Israel, Yah has entrusted them with the land and its holding to this point. And they have very strenuously tried to protect the Temple Mount, at the same time making concessions that we may or may not agree with. And while we would stand at the side and say, you should have done, you should have said, and you ought to do, none of us live in the land, and none of us have anything of our understanding what goes on behind closed doors in the Israeli government. And none of us understand the pressures that the Jews or the Israeli government in particular are under. So before we armchair quarterback this thing, let's just hold our opinions and understand that Yah's orchestrating things according to his plan. Now, should if Israel had not relinquished control of the Temple Mount after the 67 war, 6-day war there. You can debate it back and forth. The thing is, they did. And so we have the current situation. It is improving. Our dear friend Hanok Young is posting videos of being able to go up and offer prayers on the Temple Mount. And for that, we are thankful. It is a start. Ultimately, the house of Yah will be rebuilt on that piece of property. What will it take until we get there? I don't know. Meanwhile, here in the United States and other nations that house the house of Joseph is expressed through Manasseh and Ephraim. There is this pressure about who's going to control that piece of property. Not trying to be political here and not going to the political trail, but we understand that there is pressure put by Ephraimite housing lands and nations for Israel to do certain things according to their pleasure and not necessarily for Israel's best benefit. When we read that now into this discourse, we understand there are two ways of looking at this. One is Yehuda is approaching his brother Joseph, again, unknown to himself, with humility. And he's simply acknowledging the dire circumstances that he and his brothers had been to and what they have been involved with. And he's offering the emotional story of how that he's dealt with his father and that he's put himself up as guarantee for his younger brother, Benjamin. The other side of that coin is, did you hear what I'm saying? He is speaking in cloaked aggression, barely masking words that are intended to suggest, you're not getting my brother. And we will tear this place apart before we let you have him. So when he says, do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for we're like Pharaoh, he could have been speaking with respect as he's acknowledging that he's royalty. But if he was speaking respectfully only, why would he have to ask that Joseph not get upset at him? Further, when he says, you're like Pharaoh, Rashi says that what he was really saying is, you're no different than Pharaoh or that previous Pharaoh who took our grandmother. And Yah struck his house until he turned her loose. Don't mess with us. Which way is it? You actually can read it either way. The question is, how did Joseph receive it? Whether he took it as the respectful approach or whether he understood the threat. What he came away with is, number one, Yehuda is not thinking about himself. He's no longer agitated by a younger brother acting out in his estimation. But rather, he has compassion and a yearning for his father. Can I tell you that the house of Yehuda, those that we call the Jews, they have a passion for our Heavenly Father and a yearning for Him. You may not theologically agree. That's not any part of the question. They have a yearning for the Father. And number two, he is saying in no uncertain terms, you may take me, you can hold me, but you're not getting Benjamin. That man is going home to his father one way or the other. When Joseph realizes that Benjamin is too valuable and too understandably valuable to the father, that they're not going to turn him loose. They're not going to turn that land loose. It ought to bring us to a place of contrition and brokenness and help us to finally resolve and repair this long broken relationship. May Yah heal these two houses and end our day. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, shalom.